Happy Devils Wednesday. This is the State of the Fan Address, episode 147, titled What's Up with the Devils? I'm your host, Sam Wu, here with Pucks and Pitchforks blog editor-in-chief, Nick Villano. Yes, the infamous Nick Villano on pucksandpitchforks.com. As we're streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitter Live, and Twitch on the Primetime Radio Network. Nick, look at your screen. Look at your screen. What am I doing? I'm plugging your site, or our site, I should say. Welcome, everybody. You can go on Twitter, find us at Let's Go Devils Podcasts, or at Pitchfork Puck, as we're on a momentary pause for the NHL All-Star Weekend. Lots of things to talk about. Trying to keep it positive here on the State of the Fan Address. I've been pulling some shenanigans online, Nick. Doing a little trolling. Gained a couple personal followers. I'll call it a day.
You good? Was it?
Oh, yeah, I just kept on going just because I wasn't sure when you were going to talk. But I'm just going to put my foot up, relax here. I'll adjust the camera on the live video stream feed. Look at the comments coming in. Because,
So we went with the backwards. We're backwards today. Everything, because this team is backwards. The jerseys are backwards. Everything, this is backwards. This team is backwards. So we might as well fit in with the team and be backwards, because nothing makes sense. We keep making the same mistakes. Look at this. It's a good look for me.
Yeah.
It's
good looking jersey.
It's the one thing that we got going for us is we got jerseys, right? Everybody loves the Lunar New Year. Well, most people love the Lunar New Year jersey. I thought it looked dope. I don't know, Sam. I wrote a couple things
I hate to say it. I have to give compliments when they're due because I've wrecked that third jersey like no other. But I actually like that jersey.
Yeah,
I think it's very clever. And it's red, and it has a logo. How about that concept?
Yeah, keep the Devils logo. Wild, right? Yeah, I mean, listen. What is there to say? After blowing a 2-goal lead and giving up 4 unanswered goals in the third period one night, and then the very next night losing 7-1 to that same team with the better goalie in that, right? You know, John Gillies has been all right as of late, but I don't know what there is to say about the Devils right now. They suck. That's my analysis, is we suck. But going deeper, here's the thing. And when I really look at it on paper, like this this team's contention window was so small, right? Like, or maybe I'm like misspeaking. Like, basically, a lot had to go right for this team to make the playoffs. Just to make the playoffs, a lot had to go right. You need Mackenzie Blackwood to be pretty good. You needed the defense to gel. You needed the offense to gel. You needed a couple young players to step up. You still have the youngest team in the league. And not only did everything not go right, like everything possible has gone wrong, right? Both goalies are out probably. I mean, one we know is out for the season. Mackenzie Blackwood, according to Elliot Friedman, is getting a second and third opinion. When you get a third opinion without a diagnosis, like it's one thing to get a second opinion just to confirm. I got a torn ACL. Let me get a second opinion just to make sure that, we have all the options on the table. No, they're getting a second opinion and a third opinion because they don't know what's wrong with Mackenzie Blackwood's heel. Not good. Bad start here. And then you got Dougie Hamilton, who's skating, after his jaw injury, but this team is abjectly. So I looked at the stats, Sam. We have a winning record when Ryan Graves and Dougie Hamilton are in the lineup. We are 11, 10, and 5. If we kept that pace up until now, we'd have 46 points in the standings. And I think we'd be 7 back of Boston for that last wild card spot, that's still far, right? But that's not like now we're 20 points back, which means that their record when either Ryan Graves or Dougie Hamilton is out of the lineup is historically bad. Like terrible, like 1970s Washington Capitals bad. So losing Hamilton like they did was just a major blow. And I wrote about that on Pucks and Pitchforks today. That you can go read that now. Because the impact that Hamilton has when you don't have a goalie that can make a save is huge. And I understand that he's more of an offensively minded defenseman. He's going to focus on the offensive side of things. Yeah, right there. Top right corner. Dougie Hamilton and Ryan Graves need each other. That's the one you want. And we got another one. We got one in the All-Star game that really kind of blew my mind when I saw how long it's been since we hit not very hard stat to hit. How long it's been since we've hit it. So that's all on Pucks and Pitchforks right now. Sam, you got a piece on that we'll get into later, but I do want to get on the Hamilton thing just because it's so wild how much he means to this team and how much he means to the overall defensive structure, right? I see a lot of people mad at Severson this week. Severson's not a first-line defenseman. He's probably one of the best second-line defensemen in the league, but he's one of the worst first-line defensemen in the league. And the Devils keep putting him in position to put him on the first line. This is the same situation that Andy Green was in when he was here. And I really hit Andy Green hard for a while too until I really started digging into the numbers on him and realizing like just don't play him 22 minutes a night. And Andy Green's a good defenseman. That's why we got a second round pick for him. Because he's a good defenseman. You just keep playing him 22 minutes a night, which is an abject failure. Beyond that, you don't have a real good match for Graves and you don't have a real good match for Hamilton when they're not in the lineup together. Maybe it would make sense to put Siegenthaler with Hamilton. Their numbers aren't bad together. And maybe it would make a little sense to put like I've seen some of the numbers of Ty Smith and Ryan Graves, and they're not it's a small sample. It's very small, but it's not terrible. I would try that. Like, you got to get creative with it at this point. If Hamilton is still out, I know he's skating, so hopefully he's back soon. But if Hamilton is out any more games, you got to get creative with that defensive front. I don't want. Heck, I'd even put. There's a couple things you can try if you're the Devils. I think that you have to try something though. They're not trying anything. I think Elaine Nasruddin behind the bench kind of showed himself this week. It just didn't. It went so terribly. I don't think you should fire Ruff. I don't think you should fire like his. He just lost a parent, and I want to send my condolences to Ruff and his family. Like that's terrible. So I don't want I don't want to talk about firing Ruff. Like they're not going to do it. They shouldn't do it. Like there's nothing to gain out of it. You only look like an evil son of a bitch. Excuse me, but you look evil when you fire a guy right after their parent died. I understand it's a business, but you don't gain anything. There's no guy in waiting. There's nothing to do with it now. So let's not talk about firing Lindy Ruff. It's just not the right time. Let's move on from that. Our condolences to the Ruff family. So just want to say that. But beyond that, there's a lot of excuses for this team. I know people are sick of excuses, but like for the first year, this is like legit. Like they literally they lost everybody. They lost both goalies. They lost Jack Hughes for 6 weeks. They lost Miles Wood for the entire season. They lost Dougie Hamilton for an extended period of time. They lost a bunch of dudes to COVID. Like, there are excuses. For the first year, there was actual excuses here, but nobody wants to hear them. I get it after all this time.
The one thing they didn't lose is our interest to do this podcast on regular schedule. That's all I have to say.
Here's the thing. I understand that it's, it is hard to come up with topics sometimes. It is.
It is. But
listen, I'm going to continue. We didn't get a guest this week, and that's mostly because I've been out of town. So that's my bad, guys. But I figured you wanted to hear from us anyway. You want to kind of get us our unfiltered opinion, and you didn't want anybody to get in the way of that. So we're talking this week. Me and Sam are going to give our opinion on the state of the team and what to do next. And then we'll get back to our regularly scheduled guests next week. But beyond that, we still get 50 articles a month minimum on pucksandpitchforks.com. We're still going to give you that content and we understand Devils don't have a beat reporter. Other streams of content are giving up on giving you that content, and we'll just say it straight up. That's what they're doing. People are going to complain about not having a beat reporter, and then weeks later give up on the content that they're giving. Get the hell out of here. Whatever. This it is what it is. I'm not even going to mention names.
But, I got to tell you, the great thing about the Let's Go Devils podcast is that not only are we going to give our opinions, but we want to hear yours. YouTube Live, Facebook Live, because we keep the conversation going. It's been tough. It's been really rough, Nick, to put out content every day, whether it's podcasts, whether it's written blogs, what you do for Pucks and Pitchforks. And again, we're not a podcast about patting ourselves on the back, but I could tell you that it is very hard recently to keep talking about this team because it's almost like a rinse and repeat of the disasters that's happened not only this year, but the previous year and probably the last 10 years. It's not easy talking about a bad team. It's easy to get angry and be mad and trash, whoever. That's the easy part. But when you have to dig down and try to figure out through analysis what the problem is, how are we going to fix it, the situation at hand. Heck, if we had the answer, we would be GMs right now. It's not easy. That's why we have a lot of guests on in the past, like Chico, like Bryce Salvador. When you hear Salvador and Danico on the broadcast feed, Nick, you can hear it in their voices. They're sad. They're disappointed and very sad. It's a very sad tone. Yeah.
Ken is the master of the spin. Ken Danico is the master spin artist. But you can tell he's just frustrated because they're like, what am I supposed to spin here? What positive am I supposed to take here? 7-1? What are you supposed to take from that? You take nothing because you suck.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is that this season, I've tried to hold on to somewhat of a relationship by not just lighting the Devils on fire every time I get angry through articles and stuff, but they also treat us like garbage. So I don't care anymore. I'm going to tell them how I feel about them. I'm going to write and tweet and podcast about how this team has been. And they're going to complain about the coverage, but then they're going to also dictate who that coverage comes from. It is what this team has just mismanaged the entire situation. And I think personally that Tom Fitzgerald still did a good job this offseason, and things just went off. Things went haywire. But when you continuously lift up yourself, like you won the offseason, right? How many times have we won the offseason, Sam? Like 3 out of the last 6 years, we were the offseason champions of the world. Do we get a cup for that? Do we get like a mini cup? Like, do we get this cup? Can I raise this cup? Like, off-season champs. Say it's filled with water instead of beer because it means nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I do like water.
Wow. Now you're making me thirsty. You're making me thirsty. Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, the feeling I get on social media, I mean, I'll admit I have been trolling a little bit just to have a little fun. Just kidding around, trying to make light of everything. Some people read it the wrong way. Some people, whatever. One of the things that I've been getting lately is when you're doing this, it's not easy because sometimes you wonder, should I put this out there? But if that's not how I honestly feel, I'm going to put it out there. But, I feel that our jobs, Nick, is that, yes, we're fans, but we hold the team accountable. That we're not going to be like, hey, you know what? Jack Hughes scored. We'll get it back next time. Just stop it. It doesn't solve anything. We're obviously supporting the team because otherwise we probably quit this podcast and then, come draft time, we'll do a podcast, 3 months, 4 months later. No, we're at it because our passion is there and we do this. But there were some people.
On that point, can I just make one point on that point?
Yeah.
So we've talked about how it's been my 5-year anniversary at Fansided, right?
Yeah.
And I've been offered opportunities over the last 2 months. But those opportunities while it would be more lucrative for myself, it would force me to give up the Pucks and Pitchforks blog because they would want me to focus on those. As you can see, I'm still the editor of the Pucks and Pitchforks blogs, which means I'm turning down those opportunities because I love talking about this team. I love talking to the Devils fans. I love writing about this team. I don't want to give that up, right? That's not something that I'm willing to do right now. Even if it means turning down opportunities, which I have. So I understand that, Oh, what are you going to say, Sam?
Well, I'm in the same boat, too. We do this podcast every Wednesday night. We rarely skip. Yeah. And if somebody would want to either schedule something where either a freelance gig that I would do or some entertainment that night, I said, no, I'm booked. I got to do my podcast.
Listen, we've done it on vacations. Yeah. We've done it from hotel rooms. We've done it from Airbnbs. We've done it from the back of a car, the front of a car. We've done it in suits and ties, and we've done it in beachwear. Like
we've done it in the middle of Amelie Arena outside.
We have. We've done it. We've done it. In the Taj 973. We've done it everywhere. We've been around the place, and we've found ways to make this work because we enjoy talking to the Devils fans, and it's
and they're
sad
chiming in right now.
Here's the thing: is that can I be honest, Sam? The reason why I was so upset this season went so badly is all of the negative fans were right. Like, what am I supposed to say to them now? It's like, see, I was negative. Yeah, you're right. We sucked again. I don't like to go into the season with that kind of thought process, but we did. We sucked again. I don't know what to say. I do think that there's a couple things in this offseason that you have to really focus on. You have to focus on getting the right coaching staff. You have to focus on getting the goaltender situation is the number one priority. Number two is the coaching staff. Because, again, I don't want to talk about Ruff losing his job, but I think you have to reevaluate that situation once the time is right. And then number 3, you got to figure out whether you have the right collection of talent at forward. I think your defense really is fine. I really do. I mean, if Ty Smith throws up all over himself again next year, then I don't know what to say. Like, that stinks. But you got a Kevin Ball who could replace him. You got a Riley Walsh who could replace him. You got a Hoytuk who could replace him. You got some players, and then you got to figure out what's going to happen with Shakir Mughamadoulin. I think that he needs 2 years in the AHL. Like, he was a long-term project, and we kind of forget that. I forget it as well. He was a long-term investment because he was tall and skinny. He has some intangibles, but he's definitely not going to be ready next year. And then there's the Luke Hughes factor. I really, really, really don't think, and I've been told that they don't want to play him here next year. But with Owen Power in Canada, with Owen Power going to China for the Olympics to represent Canada, it's going to be an opportunity for Luke Hughes. And somebody else.
Who's he? Ethan Edwards? Is that his name?
Yeah, Ethan Edwards actually it looks like he's on the first line tonight, right, for Michigan?
Yeah.
So that's an interesting
5'10", 5'11" defenseman, New Jersey Devils draft pick.
Yeah, so they and Edwards is a player that he has a lot of interesting intangibles. He does play. He's been good this season. The Michigan team's hard to assess because there's so much talent up and down the lineup, but Edwards has looked good. You got to keep up, right? Anyway, there's a lot, and here's the thing about it, Sam, is that I've been kind of looking at the past, like Toronto. I've been looking at how Toronto went from 0 to hero, and they're not the hero. They keep losing in the first round, but you know what I mean. Like, they're a perennial playoff team, one of the best teams in the league, yada yada yada. Just kind of looking at all those terrible years, and I know Steve Dangle got asked a question by Jack Dawkins, our guest from last week, and he answered on his YouTube show. And he was like, I don't even know what to tell you. Like, this team just stinks. It's like, it was an evisceration. He's like, yeah, you got injuries, but everybody gets injuries. You need depth. I think that, honest to goodness, the Devils never had depth. That was just something that did not happen. You did not have a replacement for Miles Wood. You did not have a replacement for Dougie Hamilton. You did not have a replacement for Ty Smith, who I know hasn't gotten hurt, but he's terrible. You did not have a replacement for Ryan Graves. You did not. Well, you got Siegenthaler, who probably could replace Graves if he went out long term. But then you don't have a replacement for Siegenthaler to do what he does. You don't have a replacement for Mikey McLeod. You don't have a replacement for Zaka when he's fallen off the map. You don't have this is why Yanni Kokkonen hasn't been healthy scratched all year. You don't have a replacement for him. This is why Pavel Zacha hasn't had to sit down all year, because you don't have a replacement for him. This is why when McLeod struggled, you can't sit him down because there's no one to replace him. There's Boquist. Boquist, who's looked pretty good, the past 3 games, all right. He's been all right. He would be the replacement for those players, but they haven't been willing to do that because they think that it's better to have struggling Kuokkanen and struggling Zacha and struggling Ty Smith than the alternative. The alternative is Colton White, who hasn't played well. The alternative is Christian Yaros when he's healthy, and he hasn't played well. The alternatives are not good. They worked on the depth a little bit. The Merkley for Yaros trade was to work on depth. But they didn't. They made a lot of moves to make the AHL better. But now you're stuck in a place where the AHL is the only place where you really want them to develop because they're winning. They're winning every night. Holtz has a 2-point night tonight. The last time I checked, they were up on the Laval Rocket. Hopefully that they're still up because they're looking really good now that they got most of their players back. This team, you're in a position where the NHL team just sucks, and it's going to suck because all of the other alternatives right now are not smart investments. It's not a smart investment to drain Utica to bring everybody up to and then try them out in the NHL, play them a little bit, and then sit them a little bit, and then play them a little bit to see who works, to try to find the chemistry. None of those moves make any sense. It doesn't make a lot of sense to trade for somebody. Like there's the Connor Garland rumors like that. Kind of seems like a off-season thing. I don't know why you would do that now. I understand he has 2 or 3 years on a good contract, but other teams are going to want him for a playoff run and offer more right now. Why are you competing with that? Not a smart move, if you ask me. There's a lot of things that it's just too late, Sam. If you're going to make these moves, make them in December when things were on the cusp of falling apart, and then they just let them fall apart.
Yeah.
You let Mackenzie Blackwood just continue to go out there on a bum heel when you knew that Jonathan Bernier was nowhere to be found, and the only move you made was bring in John Gillies. John Gillies has been fine, but you made this move to bring back Scott Wedgwood to be an insurance policy, and then you put him on waivers. You got claimed by Arizona, who was desperate for a goalie, and you knew that. Like, why did you make that move? And I think that was the move to bring up Holtz, which they didn't even use correctly. I'd have to double check. That one is escaping me. But now you're in a position where you have to throw one of your 21-year-old goalies into an NHL net to get bombarded. And I've had people ask me why Nico Dawes isn't getting that opportunity, and I think that's because they have higher hopes for Nico Dawes. I think they think that Nico Dawes is the future in net if Mackenzie Blackwood is not. I think he's the one that they got all their faith in, and they don't want him to have a season where he just gets drilled confidence-wise. Unfortunately, it's unfortunate for Akira Schmid. Akira Schmid has talent, but we forget quickly that we gave up on him. We thought he was done. And then he had this magical season in the USHL, which is not a top league. And then he's back. He's back in our good graces. We signed him. We put him in the AHL. He was supposed to back up Dawes this season. He ended up being one of the best goalies in the AHL this season. He's been phenomenal. But he's not ready for the show. He's not ready for the NHL. And they have to put him in there because no one's available. The Buffalo Sabres are the ones who are going to be signing goalies because they have nobody. Did they just sign Craig Anderson? Did I see that right?
I
had to double check, but
yeah.
I wasn't paying attention to much national stuff, but he's playing for them now, so I'm assuming they signed him. What do I say, Sam? This team is, there's a lot of teams that need goalies right now, especially the teams at the bottom that are just desperate for anything. And the Devils are one of them, and I don't think that anything's happening. I think you're going to see a lot of John Gillies this season. You're going to see a lot of John Gillies. And if he plays well, maybe you convince him to stay in that Scott Wedgwood role, right? I think that would be okay. Just as a desperation, need a backup, nothing else going for you. Put him in the AHL next year kind of thing, or whatever. Don't put him in the AHL. Have him be your healthy scratch. I could care less. I think healthy scratches are overrated when your team is this young and you can call up and send down players willy-nilly easily. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I think you're in a situation where the Devils are just not they're not going to win a lot of hockey games from now until the rest of the season. And it sucks because you got 38 games left? Or 37 games left? It's a lot of losing. You got a lot of losing. And, I'm going to write an article next week about the situation at hand. Because if the Devils win, say the Devils win the number 1 overall pick, what do you do? It's centers at the top of the draft. What do you do? You got to have a hard conversation because right now you got McLeod, Mercer, Nico, and Hughes. What they're average ages of 21. What do you do if you get the number 1 overall pick and it's a center? It's even if you're not taking Shane Wright, there's a couple of Nemec is the only other guy I would even consider for the number 1 overall pick. So I guess you could take Nemec. And he probably – I'd have to do more research. I don't want to talk without doing more research. But I think theoretically you can kind of move him around a little bit. But, the Devils – and the Devils are in a place where they – for the first time in a long time, they don't need a young defenseman. You just saw – you got 7 more years of Dougie Hamilton. Damon Severson is in a place where you don't – unless you trade him, But you just traded for Damon Severson. Then you got Kevin Ball, you got Hoytuk, you got Luke Hughes, you got Ty Smith, you got Riley Walsh, you got all these defensemen who are. Oh, and then Mughal Madulin. You got all these defensemen that are at least relatively skilled, and did I just name 6 defensemen? You
named a lot.
You got
Kevin Ball.
Yeah, let's say you need to find 6 out of Siegenthaler or somebody you're going to want to resign. You got out of Siegenthaler, Dougie Hamilton, Ty Smith, Riley Walsh, Kevin Ball, Luke Hughes, Hoytuk, Vukovic has kind of fallen out of favor, but I still think he has a lot of skill. Shakir Mukhamadullin, that's 9 defensemen. They're long-term options. And I didn't even name keeping Ryan Graves or, I don't think they're going to re-sign Subban at this point. I don't see the point. I think you let him go to a team that might win. But again, I didn't even mention Colton White, who they're trying to give an NHL look to, or Jaros or whatever. So the Devils are right now in a position where they just are in no man's land. That's the best place. That's the best way I could describe it. This team is in no man's land. They are bad. They have no chance at the playoffs. They are the youngest team in the league. And then their AHL team is dominating. Not even
That's
winning.
The only hope we have.
They're not on the cusp like Binghamton was 2 years ago. Remember that team that just went on a run and they were just squeezing on to that final playoff spot. No, this team is the number 1 team in the North. They could probably coast the rest of the season and make the playoffs easy. They might even get the number 1 seed in the entire league. I think they're the number 1 team again in the AHL based on point percentage. I got to double check. It's them. The Wolves are up there, Chicago's team. So that's good though. When you do have winning within the organization, that tells you something. It tells you something's working. That's kind of was the start for Toronto. It was the Marlies started winning before the NHL team. And then they were in the similar position where they didn't want to ruin the Marlies when bringing them up to the Maple Leafs would just teach them how to lose. So I think that the Devils are in a similar situation where calling people up and down, you don't want to bring Alexander Holt to this mess when he looks so good in the AHL. You don't want to bring Nolan Foote up to this mess, or a Hoytuk, or Nico Dawes, or you want to keep them there. Learn to win, learn to score, learn to build your confidence up, get everything going, and then that's how I think the Devils' long-term plan is really going to work. So yeah, this sucks. Don't get me wrong. I hate it. I wish I could talk about other things. I'm kind of sick of going on Twitter and be like, "Hey, we suck. Cool, thanks, bye." There's not a ton of in-game tweeting from me this season because that's where I'm like, I don't know what analysis you want from me here. I'll write some analysis. I'll put it down on paper, but the instant I'm apathetic to this team. I'm trying to figure out what more I can have as far as an opinion concerns because they just continue to suck. And then I look at the lineup and I'm like, how would I even expect them to do anything here? They took that lead against Toronto the other day. What was that, Monday? And who here thought that they were going to hold on to
that? That's a good question because I was thinking to myself, could this be another here we go again?
Yeah, you always think oh, this was a fun first 2 periods. We're going to lose, but it was fun to go into the third period with the lead. That's a win for us. I looked at the score, I was like, that's cool. Oh, Austin Matthews scored. Yeah, I saw that coming. And I say, the Maple Leafs are winning now. Well, that was fast. Fast, expected, but it was fast. And then you look at it and you're just like, I don't know what else to think. They're going to lose. And then they lose. You're like, okay, they lost. Saw that coming. It's just, there never has to be a rhyme or reason to it. They've blown so many leads, and Vinny Parisi wrote about this after the Toronto game. They've blown so many leads that are just heartbreaking and like just the worst. Just rip my heart out and hand it back to me while it's beating fashion. And it's a never ending proposition where I continue to watch this team just fall down on their face and then not get back up. You can see them on the ice. You saw that last night in the Toronto game where it's just the Toronto scored and they scored again and scored again and scored again because the team just didn't come to play. Like they looked at it, they're like, "Oh, we're losing." Even when they're winning, they're like, "Okay, cool." Oh, they scored. Oh, oof. Well, here we go again. They're going to score 3 more, and then they do because you're kind of like, I was going over some of the goals, and Zaka just looks bad, and people are in my mentions and in my DMs telling me about it too. Just like, look at this goal, man. Like, look at what were they doing? What and like Severson on I think that was the Marner goal where he covered the wrong guy, and he just kind of like stood there, and Zaka is just in the wrong position on a lot of these, and like the solution would be stop giving up 2-on-1s. Right? Like that would be great, but that's not what we do. We've been giving up 2-on-1s literally this entire tenure since Ray Shero took over because he changed the focus. And the focus isn't a bad focus. The problem is that you're missing some of those players that really bring the grit, determination, or you bring them in the wrong position. Like take Brian Boyle, right? Brian Boyle was a perfect guy for that team. He was perfect for that team, and they should have probably just kept him on. And I think what they did is they chose Pat Maroon over Boyle, but then, Maroon decided to go somewhere else. So they're like, okay, well, we lost Maroon, but we still have Boyle. Cool. But then the team sucked. So they were like, well, Boyle's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. So they traded him for a second-round pick, which at the time looked like a good deal. But then we see Boyle right now just dominating for the Penguins. We've seen him play really good roles for teams when he's in the right system. He doesn't work on like a Florida. He doesn't work there. He didn't work there because he needs to be in the right position. He was in the right position with the Devils, and now we see him dominating other teams. And now we don't have a player like that. We don't have, that's why Bastian fit so well when he came back. Because the role that Bastian plays fits so well with everything else the team is doing. You need somebody with a little bit of speed, a lot of grit. You don't need a guy who hits. Bastian does hit, but you don't need hits. But that's why he fits so well. Stand there, be a big body in front, get in the way of things, shoot the puck. When it comes to you, you don't need to go in and make a play for yourself. The play's going to come to you. And that's how Boyle had that huge year, and that's how Bastian's having the year that he's having right now. But I would love it if I could have Bastian on the 4th line and Boyle on the 3rd line because that role fits so well on this team. The role fits so well. And the problem is that coaches kind of get ahead of themselves, and people don't remember this, but they tried to put Boyle in like the 1st line for a little while. That was terrible, or maybe it was the 2nd line. But they tried to put Boyle in the top 6, and it didn't work out at all. That was a terrible idea. Like, you just got to take these guys. There's guys who fit certain roles, very important roles on the team, and just leave them there. We've seen them mess it up with Miles Wood. We've seen them right now messing it up with Nathan Bastian. We've seen them mess it up with Brian Boyle. Just let them play this role that is so important to this team and stop trying to elevate them. So that was my rant. I'm sticking to it.
It's a team concept. The team is obviously soft, except for the exception of Nico. Nico puts it all on the line every game. He is trying so hard as a captain where he's overexerting himself out there. The team, again, it comes back to beef. It does not surprise me that when they got Bastian back, he's having the success he's had because that's the element they're missing. And again, I'm probably wrong here. Maybe I'm right here. I don't know. But I think the Devils are an example of overemphasizing analytics to the point where there's no balance on this team. I think right now they've got great size on defense. They've got talented forwards down the middle. But why, their goaltending, suspect. But it's not the whole problem. I think a lot of it is the team is just built a certain way. And I think some of the glaring signs here is I think they forgot that you need to have players with leadership, role players like you were talking about, and they don't have much depth there. Dougie Hamilton takes a freak accident puck to the mouth. He's out. He's out. Who's the next man up?
Yeah.
And then that's where they have to pull players out of their comfort zone, playing certain positions, and it's just not working. And again, I don't know what the Devils can. It seems like they when they scout players, they do a very good job of it, the individual player, but putting the pieces together has been a mismatch that hasn't worked. Pavel Zacha, for example, he doesn't do it for me. I rather have another 6'5" forward that puts a body on and wears down the opponent in the offensive zone and forechecking and keep on pounding it. I just think he's just too timid at this point.
I mean, for a guy with that size to just have
I would expect more
edge.
I would expect more. I was hoping he would turn out to be the next Zubris, with that size and that can play center or wing or whatever and be that serviceable player, but very effective player. Again, it's like, the turnovers.
And here's the thing is that Zubris took a long time to really hit that stride. So maybe Zacha could still be that type of player, but you're at the point now where you have to ask if he could be that player here. And you have to be okay if you're Tom Fitzgerald, you have to be okay with trading him and him exploding. Because it's very possible that he's going to go to a system that works for him, and he's going to be he could be a 30-goal scorer. And that would stink. That would stink to watch. But he's not that here. And I don't think he ever will be. I just don't think the system works. I don't think the philosophy works for him here. I don't think that he'll ever be even a 50-point consistent player. And if that's the case and he could do that somewhere else, I don't want to say give him away, but I also don't know what his value is right now. How much what are you getting for Pavel Zacha? Can you even get a third-round pick? If I'm only getting a third-round pick for Pavel Zacha, if I'm trading Pavel Zacha, I want another failed project somewhere else. You know what I mean? Jack Dawkins, who's on the podcast last week, keeps telling me he wants to try to do a Lawson Krause for Pavel Zacha type move, and I get it. And maybe that's definitely and he said on the podcast last week Kyler Yamamoto is another player he would target, and those are the types of moves I would look at. I think it's going to cost even if you have to pay a little bit more, maybe throw in a third or fourth round pick to get one of these projects for Pavel Zacha and to flip it. I'm all for it because his value to you is nil. I'm gonna try to finish this one after the podcast, but I'm writing a bunch of moves that I think would make the Devils forwards better and produce more scoring. And Pavel Zacha is going to the fourth line. You gotta just reset him because he's in shambles.
Well, this team is a mess right now. They've got a lot of great pieces. I even started daydreaming today. Again, this is just daydreaming, folks. I didn't say that I really mean it, but I wonder if Jack Hughes is going to be the next Kirk Muller of the Devils. have some great years early on, and then trade him
You
at
think
some
that's gonna happen
point.
to Hughes?
I don't know.
I don't think it's
The
gonna
way
happen to
this
Hughes.
team is going, but then again, this is after a 7-1 loss. So,
And
that's
here's
why.
the thing: is that Jack Hughes is the Devils' marketability. Kirk Muller was
Oh,
not
yeah.
that. I mean, I wasn't around for Muller, so I can't say that for certain. But I feel like he wasn't the. This is what we're gonna sell the next decade of Devils hockey on. You know what I mean? Like he was great.
Yeah, I think Mueller got hurt by Lemieux a lot. That whole
Oh yeah.
yeah. I mean, Kirk Mueller was a great player. Don't get me wrong, Captain Kirk. I mean, he was a guy that you always looked at, but again,
But Mario Lemieux is arguably the greatest player of all time.
yeah. And on top of that, Luke is in the system, so I don't think Jack's going anywhere. I mean that. But when I daydream of these stupid things. But right now, and the other thing too, Nick, again, when I say sell the team, I'm joking. It's just an expression or whatever, because people take that literally. Oh, you don't want to go to Quebec. I read this stuff in Twitter. Have a little fun trolling, and the other thing too, it's maybe this is a good segue, Nick. Going into my article, I honestly believe it's 2024, 2025. If we're lucky, that we're going to see this team really come together. If they fill that pipeline, continue to fill that pipeline,
Yeah.
by the time we get to 2024 season, 25 season, which is two years away, 2.5 years away, I think you've got Hughes and Nico still on the team in the middle of their monster contracts. I don't want to say monster, but long-term contracts.
What
Dougie
is it?
Hamilton,
7 and 8 million. That's still quite big.
Dougie Hamilton will be in his early 30s. And then you talk about the maturation of Dawson Mercer, Alexander Holtz. These are two guys part of that 2000 draft, and and that 2000 draft coming in to the 2024-25 season, we will really get to see the fruits of Tom Fitzgerald's labor and what he put together in 2020, and then in 2021, you're talking about Luke Hughes possibly cracking the lineup on that team, out of Michigan, and also don't forget about Chase Stillman. I think he's going to be somebody that may fit that role we were just talking about, being soft. And, he may bring that Miles Wood craziness to the team, physical, somewhat skilled, but, but an effective player. And then you're talking about Bastian, if he's still around by then, if he's going to make a great living. And I've said this over and over again, parking his butt in front of the crease, especially the power play, because remember, he is a second rounder. Mikey McLeod was the first rounder in that draft class. And then you've got Jesper Bratt, who's a sixth rounder in that draft class in 2016. That 2024-25 season, if they don't make the playoffs and they're just as bad as they are right now, that's really rock bottom. But I don't see that happening because these guys are too good to allow that to happen. And, I think what I'd like to see with the Devils is more structure out there on the ice, Nick. I think, again, it's so inconsistent. You just don't know which team is going to show up. They got outscored by Toronto from the first games, start of the third period to the end of the second period in the second game, 10-0. 10-0.
Not great.
That's bad.
It's bad.
That's bad.
It's
To
real bad.
the point where I swear to you, I think Toronto put an internal mercy rule because they felt so bad. Because it was like a 2-on-1, and the guy decides to pass it back to somebody else, maybe try to get him a goal. Something that they would normally
they're treating
wouldn't
us
do.
like we're an empty net. Like, that's sad.
Yeah. And, again, I don't fault the goaltenders last night because, even Najardine said, like, they left him out to dry.
Yeah.
It wasn't fair to them. They had no defense, and you can't expect the goaltender to carry the load like that. I don't think I think if Dominic Hasek or Brodeur was in that game, I think they would have given up at least 4 or 5 because it was that bad. Well, Hasek sometimes surprises you. That guy, I don't even know. Like he was so unorthodox that I don't know about Hasek may have played out of his mind, but still, it's like when's enough's enough. I can't stand this team right now because sometimes they're just so hard to watch.
You don't even look forward. I like groan when it's game day.
But what I want to know is what are the owners thinking? I want to know. Some people would say to me, Sam, why would you? Who cares what the owners think? But to me, it's important because, again, this goes back to with my sell the team mantra. At the end of the day, any business, the owners of the team or the owners of the gas station, the owners of the retail store is always responsible. Always responsible. And if there needs to be a correction and they don't correct the problem as a customer, you know what you do? I'll take your business somewhere else then. Just the way it is.
People are. The arena's half empty.
Yeah. I put this poll up again. I'll try to bring it up on Twitter and go to Let's Go to Ellis Pod. And, I think it's invoicing day for season ticket holders. And hashtag NJ Devils fans. I'm sorry. Yeah. NJ Devils fans, will you be renewing your Devil season tickets for the upcoming 22-23 NHL season? 13% said yes. 77% said no. 10% said undecided. Out of 137 votes. And you can vote if you're a season ticket holder. 6 days and 9 hours left on the poll. This team is hard to watch. And again, it goes back to, okay, what do you want the owners to do? It's the players, it's the coaches. But this has happened under 2 different GMs. It's happened under Ray Shero, and it's now happening under Tom Fitzgerald. When is it going to end? There's no track record of this ownership group actually knowing how to win, at least in hockey, for that matter.
That's all I got, Sam.
Oh, you're spent?
Yeah, I'm spent. I got to finish this article. We got to get it up for tomorrow so people have something to read. Try to fix the Devils. We got to fix them. So
I might write something on Sunday. I like having my articles coming out on Monday. I feel like a journalist.
We like a Monday morning article here at pucksandpitchforks.com. Yeah, check out pucksandpitchforks.com. I already brought up. We got one interesting all-star stat that'll blow your mind. And then we got the reason why Dougie Hamilton and Ryan Graves are the key to this team winning. We have a couple others. We got Sam Wu talking about when will it really be able to end? Will it end in 2025? God, I hope not. We got some player grades for the first half of the season from David Holliday. I wrote a Dawson Mercer piece. Vinny Parisi is sad because the Maple Leafs made us look really bad. Yeah, and then I know I promised you guys the prospects last week, but that obviously did not happen. So look for that soon. I think I'm going to do that next week. It just kind of there were issues with it, so I had to reevaluate the entire list. So sorry about that, guys. That's definitely going to come out next week. It's either going to come out on a Friday or it's going to come out on Monday. So look for that. I will tweet it out. Sam will tweet it out. Everybody will tweet it out. But yeah, get yourself. Hold on. Sorry, the Devils just tweeted, so I just want to make sure. Interesting. Anyway,
well, what happened?
It was just it's like a random. I don't know. The Devils just shared like a random story about Lindy Ruff going to some kid's practice. So, we'll read that later. But yeah, pucksandpitchforks.com at Pitchfork Puck. We're still here, Sam. We still gave you an hour's worth of content on the Devils.
We didn't skip a night. We didn't skip a week. We didn't skip a month.
We won't see you in May. We'll see you next week.
Oh, Nick, we have a lot of fun on this podcast, and we don't pat each other on the back for just one game.
I mean, we pat each other on the back a lot, but you know.
Do we? I don't know. Sometimes I'll say. Sometimes I think my articles suck.
Everything is backwards.
What's it? Oh, okay. All right. Trying to cue up the music here. Where the heck is the technical difficulties? Anyway. Well, I want to thank all those chiming in. But keep it here. Keep it here on the Let's Go Devils podcast.
There it is.
Wow. All right. Enough. That's enough. Dropping the podcast at midnight for your morning commute tomorrow. It's going to be pouring rain in New Jersey, but that's okay. The Let's Go Devils podcast moves on. Go to pucksandpitchforks.com for all your Devils blogging needs and Devils content. Till next time, let's go Devils.